The injuries are mounting now for the Philadelphia Eagles. Lane Johnson, Avonte Maddox back on the injured list. We got lots to talk about there. Are you concerned? Are you worried? What should the Eagles do about this situation? Joel Embiid, not even in the top 5, top 6 MVP voting. Some people projecting him not to be an all-star starter. The disrespect to Joel Embiid. Look, I disrespected him, but the disrespect across the league is insane on this guy. We're going to talk that as well. Trending in AM starts in 30 seconds.
Holding, gets around in front.
Joel Embiid,
And Philadelphia has it.
And a very good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow on all social media platforms. But make sure you do me a favor and hit that like, subscribe, comment, turn notifications on the YouTube page. I greatly, greatly appreciate that. I am your host, Phil Stiefel. We got Dylan Davis sitting next to me here. Make sure you follow him, DylanJD98 on Twitter. Good morning, Dylan. How you doing today?
I'm good, Philip. Liking the new hairdo.
Did you have a great Christmas?
I did. I heard you did as well. You saw Santa's reindeer outside.
Saw some Santa reindeer, had some good food, you know.
Yeah, got a fresh cut. Like to see it.
This was my Christmas. This is what I did on my Christmas day. I cut my hair. You know,
good. Very productive of you.
Yeah, you got it. You got to be productive. When you get one day off a month, you got to be productive.
Yeah, there you go. But no, I'm good, man. The Sixers 8-game win streak, obviously, pulling out a win in Madison Square Garden on Christmas Day was nice to see. The Eagles obviously come away with a loss on Christmas Eve, but we'll get into all of that and really going forward.
Yeah. So I really want to start. Let's start with the Eagles here today. Then we'll get to the Sixers in a little bit here. The injuries are obviously mounting with the Eagles. Lane Johnson, Avonte Maddox back on IR. Well, they haven't put him on IR officially, but he's going to miss a significant amount of time, possibly the rest of the season. And Dylan, we have maintained pretty well this year. Honestly, we've had a lot more injuries than people realize this year. Jalen Hurts, obviously, 2 times now, Avonte Maddox, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Dallas Goedert. The list goes on. We've missed a lot of people, but we are now 2 weeks away from the playoffs starting. Are you starting to get a little concerned about some pretty serious injuries starting to pile up for this Eagles team?
I think you would be kind of naive not to be slightly concerned. Like, I don't want everybody in full panic mode. We don't even know the full extent to these injuries. If they lock up the 1 seed, you're talking over basically close to a month, over 3 weeks of rest there for Lane Johnson and Avonte Maddox and CJ Gardner-Johnson to get back and healthy on the field at 100%. So Jalen Hurts. So, you can't go full panic mode, but to not just think about the what if side of things. What if this goes wrong? What if Lane's injury is worse? What if Avonte can't play? That would be kind of naive and stupid, right? So I'll be honest with you, Phil. The level of player, you would think that Lane Johnson missing time would be more impactful. Absolutely. I'm more concerned about the slot cornerback. Yeah. I'm more concerned about the drop-off from Avonte Maddox to Josiah Scott. And now I have a plan. I think you saw the plan as well. I think we know what Jonathan Gannon should do when CJ Gardner-Johnson returns. But the Lane Johnson thing, the Eagles are 3-10 since 2020 in Lane Johnson missed games.
I was hoping you brought that up. But you know what? I saw somebody else post a comment just literally 5 minutes ago that made me think 3-10 when Lane Johnson's out. But you know some of those games that he's been out for? 2020. How many did he miss in 2020? The team was atrocious.
Yeah.
Some of those games in 2016, it was Doug Peterson's first year. There was a lot going on. You had a rookie quarterback. The situation's different now.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't a lot of those games that he missed. So I don't know what part of that 3-10 was last year when he missed time with the mental health issues and stuff like that.
Right. Beginning of the year.
I don't know what their record was then. But I'm not. Look, I'm concerned with Lane Johnson. We can get back to Avonte Maddox in a second. Lane Johnson is a huge loss, and first and foremost, not only is he one of the best right tackles Well, he's the best right now in football, but he's one of the best in the last 20 years, last 30 years. Surefire, first ballot Hall of Famer, in my opinion. Totally disrespected by not being on the top 100 players list.
Yeah.
But we are in a better position now to fix that because of Jeff Stoutland and what he's been able to accomplish. I've seen a lot of people tweeting they want to move Jordan Mailata over to right tackle and start Andre Dillard at left tackle. And when I see people posting stuff like that, why would you want to affect both? Like Jordan Mailata could hypothetically move to right tackle, but you're taking one of the best left tackles away from his position.
You're worsening two positions.
You're worsening two positions versus just fixing one. And you've got Jeff Stoutland. And let's be honest, we've had injuries across the entire team all year. And in-game injuries, yes. Avonte Maddox, Lane Johnson went down mid-game. We had problems. But every single time we've lost somebody this year, Dylan, the next game, throughout the week of practice, it's not been as bad as it seemed. Like, Avonte Maddox missed 4 weeks. The game he went down in the first time, we struggled. The rest of the time he was down, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson didn't play the slot. They figured it out. They were able to game plan. They were able to coach up their players to a better. Josiah Scott's 23 years old.
Here's the problem. I'd have to go back because I'm trying to remember the 4-ish games, 5-ish games Maddox missed. When you're talking level of playoff competition, which is a Dallas Cowboy level team, is Dak Prescott. That's different than, say, if he missed against Matt Ryan and the Colts, if he missed the game against Ryan Tannehill and the Titans, right? So that's what worries me when these higher, more potent offenses, more talented offenses are going to point at him and pick at him the way Dak and Kellen Moore did on Saturday night. Whereas a team like the Colts, they don't have a wide receiver to do that. They don't have a quarterback and offensive mind to really do that. So that's what I'm worried about come playoff time with him.
My biggest concern is, though, that he'll be the one that misses. So from everything we could tell, the Lane Johnson injury, first off, I think they're downplaying it. The Eagles, the media that's doing the at the link, reporting. When I hear the word tear, I don't care whether you tear whatever body part is attached to the word tear. I can't imagine that being a 3-week healing process and him being back for the divisional round. I can't.
Maybe it's a 3-week healing process to get him back to 90%, 85%.
My guy's over at Talking 215, Jake, he's got an actual orthopedic surgeon that he's friends with. Whenever there's an Eagles injury, he brings them on. And the guy said it they did an emergency 10-minute pod yesterday, brought him on. He's like, obviously I haven't seen the scans, but when there's an abdominal tear, when you use the word tear, that normally means sports hernia, which we've seen people play through sports hernias, but we've also seen people miss 12, 14 weeks with a sports hernia. So in my opinion, they're saying he's not done for the year, but in my opinion, I'm scared that he might not be back because it'll depend on 2 to 3 weeks from now. What's it look like on the new scans? Obviously, if he misses time, you don't have to worry about rust with Lane Johnson. But in my opinion, there's a fear in my mind that he's gone for the season.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. But I guess what I'm just analyzing these two, and you have the hope that both can be back by the playoffs and the divisional round, right? But let's just say worst case scenario, both are out. I'm trying to figure out which one impacts this team more, or is a more negative to this team. You brought up the Jeff Stoutland point, which is 100% correct. You have all the faith in the world next to him. You have Jack Driscoll. I know he's played more time at guard. Jack Driscoll has been serviceable in his time as a Philadelphia Eagle, right? So I look at these things. I look at Jalen Hurts' mobility when he comes back healthy in the playoffs, right? I look at the fact that if you go back to 2017, what happened on the other side of the offensive line? Down goes JP. In steps Holly Pooty Vitae for the first time in his career with a statue of Nick Foles back there, and they were still able to go attain the ultimate success, right? So I view the Lane Johnson injury, while the player is head and shoulders above Avonte Maddox talent-wise at their positions, the drop-off and the effect to me is a little different for the, like I said, Josiah Scott. And you're right, Phil, they did show a capability of living without Avonte Maddox. What worries me is not only the drop-off to Josiah Scott, it's how Jonathan Gannon seemingly changes and tries to adjust, but in a bad way towards what Josiah Scott can and can't do on the field.
My,
The
my
system
biggest my
changes.
biggest concern is we talk about Stoutland and how great he is, and look, I have no concerns this week of him getting Driscoll ready for next week against the Saints. I don't, or having him ready for the playoffs if need be. The Eagles have Howie Roseman, Jonathan Gannon, and I don't even know who the defensive backs coach is, and I just Google searched it. Denard Wilson is our defensive backs coach. Who?
Yeah, I don't know.
No clue who he is. The Eagles have invested a lot in a lot of cornerbacks, slot cornerbacks, backup safeties. You could go from the biggest name in Kayvon Wallace to Zach McPherson to Josiah Scott to was Tay Gallen kind of sounds like a name that might be on the roster. I don't know.
I forget.
But, they haven't developed any of them.
No.
Like,
No,
there
they haven't.
was a point last year where we had like 75 defensive backs on our roster and practice squad, and none of them have been coached up to, figure that out. Yeah, we discussed this the first minute of the show, Kyle. This is a big no.
Bad idea.
Do not affect two positions to fix one position.
Yeah.
You start Jack Driscoll, you keep Dillard. Dillard has also been filling in at left guard when Dickerson comes. Dickerson's missed a few snaps a few times, and he's done that fill-in role pretty well. So I leave Jordan Mailata. Dylan leaves Jordan Mailata at left tackle. It's, in my opinion, the smartest move we can do.
And it's not that Mailata can't transition over to right tackle, and obviously he would be a better right tackle than if you inserted Andre Dillard, right? But like Phil said, you got one injury, you're trying to patch it up until Lane can hopefully come back. I'm not worsening two positions to do so because that's what you would be doing.
Yeah, but back to the defensive backs. Something's going to have to change in the offseason, whether you have to go out and get a new defensive backs coach or reevaluate your evaluation process. You think about it. We're hoping that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is capable of playing in the slot again. We're hoping he's back, first off. Nick Sirianni yesterday spoke that he's eligible to come off.
He's not playing this week.
He is not playing this week. Until they scan his kidneys, there is no chance that they're not even remotely close to shore. He could miss the next 2 weeks. He might not be back to the playoffs. So we're assuming Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's the answer, but we don't know yet.
Right.
So you've got 2 weeks to figure out if Josiah Scott can do it. From all intents and purposes, it sounds like Maddox is gone for the year, right?
It does, but insert my issue of great. Josiah Scott might be able to play the slot against Andy Dalton and the Saints at home. He might be able to do it against the injured New York Giants and Daniel Jones at home. And then what happens when Dak Prescott I know they're horrible this year, but what happens when Chris Godwin and Tom Brady walk into the link and they line him up in the slot with all those quick hitters? And it's not just the drop off to Josiah Scott again, man. And I've defended the dude all year long when people are still bashing Gannon and the defense and they need to do more. They've been excellent. Now you have to rely on Jonathan Gannon making the right adjustments and doing the right thing here defensively. If CJ Gardner-Johnson is healthy, I'd rather CJ Gardner-Johnson in the slot and Reed Blankenship stay at safety than CJ Gardner-Johnson back at safety with Josiah Scott in the slot.
So here's my question for you then, because you have been a guy that has been not as critical of Jonathan Gannon like I have been. I have in the last few weeks started to say we've got to give him credit.
He was horrible on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. So my question is, you lose Avonte Maddox, one of the best slot corners in the game.
Correct.
I know you've got Josiah Scott lining up there, but Dallas saw that, keep CeeDee Lamb in the slot. CeeDee Lamb goes off. Why isn't Jonathan Gannon forcing James Bradbury or Darius Slay? Why adjust the defense? Look, I understand some guys can only play the left side. Some guys can only play the right side. But a guy of Slay's ability or Bradbury's looking at a huge payday this offseason. Why are we not moving one of those guys and just saying, yo, you shadow CeeDee Lamb? Because we know Noah Brown and Michael Gallup aren't going to beat us. Why is it? Is that the cornerbacks you think saying, no, we can't play in the slot? We want to play where we play? Or do you think Jonathan Gannon he's a stubborn son of a gun and won't make that adjustment?
No, I don't think it's the corners at all, especially when you hear Darius Slay. And I would imagine James Bradbury's the same way. He's obviously a little more quiet than Slay is. But They want to follow around the number one. They want
Right.
that opportunity. And it's so contradictory to what he did earlier on in the season. Go back to week 2, Phil. Scotty and I talked about this last night. Go back to week 2 when he allowed Darius Slay to follow around Justin Jefferson and what he did to him on primetime football at the link. But yet you don't let him do that to CeeDee Lamb. Now, CeeDee Lamb is not Justin Jefferson, but CeeDee Lamb is on that next tier, right? A slight drop down, top 15, top 12 wide receiver.
Right.
So again, yeah, you're just going to allow them to pick it apart. And there's everything just went wrong. Like, again, the total lack of ability to adjust in this game where, maybe when Dak Prescott gets to 13 for 13 against your zone, maybe when it gets to 18 for 18 against your zone, you might want to sit back and say, hey, this isn't working. No, he goes 23 for 23 against your zone. That's what worries me a little bit with these lesser talented pieces. You're going to have that at safety. You're going to have that at slot now. So we'll see.
Blue City Empire Sports checking in saying, don't forget about Jordan Davis got a concussion too. Jordan Davis, I know he got hurt, but then bringing in Linville Joseph and Ndamukong Suh kind of,
patch that up a bit.
Yeah, kind of fix that. And I don't really think that it's an issue. Jordan Davis, is a great defensive tackle, nose tackle.
And by the way,
but he's playing like 10, 12 snaps a game right now anyway. So,
and by the way, everything I'm talking about with these injuries has nothing to do with the next 2 weeks. I'm focusing on the playoffs strictly. Well, he'll be back from a concussion. So
we didn't really prep for the show, but in my head, I have like a map on how this show is going to go and where it's going to go. You segued me really perfectly. It doesn't matter, but the next 2 weeks, but it does.
Oh,
so here's the question. So here's the question. Should Jalen Hurts, if he is 85 to 90% ready to play this week against New Orleans? Because then if you lock this week up, then you've got next week to not worry about anything. Like, you legitimately can just say, screw the rest of the next week, and you get 2 full weeks. Do you play Jalen Hurts this week? I would consider strongly, if he's at that 85, 90%, playing him this week versus Minshew and all these injuries. You need your best leader out there this week. I'd play Jalen Hurts this week. I know it's a tough call. It's a real tough call.
80, and I know it's just hypothetical, but your percentage threw me off with this question. 85 is low, man. 85, and how do you measure that, right? Part of me leans no, because I look at the Saints team and who's across the line of scrimmage, and I'm looking at Andy Dalton, and I would rather have Gardner Minshew than Andy Dalton, even as my backup quarterback playing in this game. I know the injury. I look at the Saints defense compared to what you're going to get week 18 versus the New York Giants when you're talking about a healthier or injured Hurts and having to risk that against a better, more ferocious defense. I understand your point. If you lock it up now, everybody gets the rest the next week and the week after that.
But here's the other scenario to that. You play Gardner Minshew this week and they win. Then there's no need for Jalen Hurts next week.
Right.
And then the bye week. So then you're going to go into the playoffs possibly
4 weeks without Jalen Hurts.
4 weeks without playing game action. You get him that game action this week so that they lock it up. And then next week they can have another break. So then you're only going 2 weeks with no game action.
I'll still say no, and here's why. If they win, I'll allow Jalen to play a possession or two week 18 to start the game, and then everybody comes out. And if they lose and week 18 becomes a must win, Jalen's playing anyway because I need that win.
I don't know. I just think the scenario in Philadelphia, the fans, the panic, you already start to see a little bit of panic starting to set in on this team. It's crazy because we are 13-2.
Can I send a PSA to everybody?
Yes.
For all the Eagles fans concerned and worried about if this Eagles team is going to lock up the number 1 seed for the postseason, I tried to say this even before the Cowboys game. Do you really think in your heart of hearts, even with the Lane and Avonte news, do you really believe that the Eagles are going to go from 13-1 to drop in their final 3 games, the last 2 at home, to Andy Dalton and Daniel Jones? Do you really believe? I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying they're going to beat the Saints 48-20. They're not losing 3 straight, people. I don't know what to tell you. They're a very, very good football team.
And they're very good even when the injury. I mean, honestly, how many injuries have we just described that this team has gone through all year long. This has not been a healthy. Like, this is different. 2020, we had a boatload of injuries, but the team won what, 4 games in 2020? This team is 13-2 with massive amounts of
And
injuries.
I would also say to you, Phil, just look at Saturday. If they don't kick themselves in their own ass 4 different times,
Absolutely,
they have a chance to beat Dallas with all those injuries, with the backup quarterback. They were in that game till the final 30 seconds. So that should be, they didn't walk into Dallas and get beat 55-10 with Gardner Minshew. And it's like, oh my God, Gardner Minshew can't play.
Cowboy fans jumping in on Twitch. I didn't even know people watched on Twitch.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
In the words of Aaron Rodgers from a few years back, RELAX. Relax. That was his whole presser. That's all he said. And he walked off the stage or whatever, the podium. Guys, we're 13-2 for a reason. And we need to, as fans, Dylan, have confidence in this coaching staff. Because every time an injury has gone down, they've gotten the guys, ready the next week. And you bring it up. We have 2 losses on the season. And both games came down to multiple plays at the end of the game of just lack of focus. Miles Sanders fumble, Quez Watkins, both games fumbling. Dallas Goedert missed face mask penalty that caused a fumble. A bad personal foul call on Brandon Graham. I mean, it just goes on and on. Those little minor things, that's it. That's the only reason why we're not undefeated at this point.
Yeah. By the way, a little side note for everybody. I'm good with seeing Quez Watkins in the slaughter on the field again. I'm good with you.
Yeah, you don't want Quez Watkins on the field anymore?
He's lazy. He's a bad route runner. He's got weak hands. Phil, those 2 interceptions were so – listen, Garner shouldn't have put the ball there. Those interceptions to me are 70% Quez, 30% Gardner Minshew. Both of them.
70%?
Both of them.
I'm putting them I put it yesterday.
Higher? Sure.
100%.
Sure. Maybe higher.
First off, I will say this. We can backtrack here for a second. The first one was it was 70% Quez, 30% the refs. Because anytime a cornerback jumps over a wide receiver's back,
normally a call.
That's a PI call. The other one, he just let the guy rip it out of his hands. What is with the Eagles offense? And Shane Steichen and Nick Sirianni, they devise this offensive game plans every week. Steichen calls the plays, but they have this, and I'm not one to criticize them because, again, we're 13-2.
Right.
But their love of Quez Watkins on short bubble screens, little short slant passes. Quez Watkins should have one role: stretch the defense. If he beats his cornerback, you throw the ball to him. If he's not open, he doesn't see the ball. He had 5 or 6 targets on Sunday.
I agree.
I mean, no offense, A.J. Brown had a good game. A.J. Brown had 8 targets on Sunday. There's no scenario where 5 go to Watkins and 8 go to A.J. Brown. It should be 2 to Watkins and 12 to A.J. Brown.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. And listen, I'm going to take it over the top here. Zach Pascal catches both those balls. Throw that out there right now. Zach Pascal's a better slot option, bigger bot.
I'm actually surprised there because Zach Pascal has that Nick Sirianni connection from Indy.
Yeah, I'm surprised he doesn't play more.
He's not a bigger, asset in this offense than he is.
I agree. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
So we're talking about Quez Watkins and the blunders that have caused us to lose 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
Do we see this week less Quez Watkins? Do we see less Miles Sanders this week? Because Nick Sirianni looked pissed off, especially at Miles Sanders walking off the field. I guarantee you he chewed that locker room apart on Sunday or on Saturday. I can see Quez Watkins for sure being off the field. Miles, I'm not sure about.
Both are good points. Miles, you just can't because of what the alternative is. I know he's struggling. You got to have faith in the dude, 1,000-yard plus rusher, 10+ touchdowns. You got to have faith in the kid to get himself out of this hole and to help him get himself out of this hole. And he didn't fumble before the Chicago game. So it's not like it's been an issue all year. Hopefully he just suddenly doesn't have the yips or something, right? But the Quest thing's interesting because he is a third or with Goddard back, he's essentially a 4th or 5th option offensively within the offense. So I agree with you. Use him as a decoy. If he could take the top off the defense here or there, great, like he did against Minnesota or Washington before he fumbled. But I agree, man. And maybe I'm just crazy. When you look at those 2 routes specifically, what are they, Phil? Little 6-7 yard in routes, little slants to pick up a first down. Tell me how a 6'4" possession receiver like Zach Pascal is not a better target for a quarterback than 5'11"
I'll one up you. How is Dallas Goedert not the target
Yeah,
on that play?
AJ Brown.
Look,
Anybody.
I was so like I watched the game, but I was working. Obviously, I had the pizza shop open on Christmas Eve, and I was paying attention, but not like I didn't know. Like I'm like, who's gonna? I didn't know what the snap counts were gonna look like at the end of the game, whatnot, the final target numbers. I'm like, I saw the box score and how many catches Dallas Goedert had. I'm like, oh well, he just came back from injury. He was probably only on the field for 40 or 50% of the snaps. He was on the field for 97% of the snaps. If you're on the field for 97% of the snaps, you should have more than a handful of catches.
Yeah. And
That should not
catches
be
were chunk plays.
Yeah. Like that to me made no sense.
I agree, man. It's a lot of it was mind-boggling. And I talked about this with Scotty last night. I don't know if you caught on this one, but maybe it was because Miles had fumbled and they were trying something different. But the Boston Scott fumble to me is 110% on Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen. What is Boston Scott getting his first look for inside your own 25 late in the game? Why? And then what happened?
The running back rotation.
It's a botched handoff.
The running back rotation has been atrocious all year long. Like,
Kenny Gainwell gets 3 carries on the goal line.
Yeah. Why? And he couldn't get in from him.
Yeah. Make it make sense, dude. Make it make sense.
As Blue City is saying, even though he's a Giants fan, doesn't get into his head. We've been through this with Miles Sanders every single year. That we coming into this year, we were talking, do we need to add somebody to the running back room? Because Miles Sanders either has two things. He either gets hurt every year or he fumbles a lot every year or both. And that's been the number one question mark on Miles Sanders throughout his 4-year career now. It just this year, neither had reared its ugly head till 2 weeks ago against the Bears. And now it's just like 2 weeks in a row. And then you start seeing Gainwell. I mean, after Miles Sanders fumbled, he didn't see the field the last 3 drives.
Yeah.
He was
which is a little over extreme in my opinion.
Over. It also cost me because I was 5 yards shy.
Again,
I was 5 rushing yards shy on 2 same game parlays. 5 rushing yards shy on 2 of them.
So Miles gets the punishment. Okay, fine. I promise you, Quez was on the field late in the game.
Absolutely.
Quez doesn't get the same treatment. Quez doesn't get the same punishment. So
right. Yeah, I don't know. That kind of confuses me how and why. And I mean, Boston Scott. I don't think Boston Scott saw the offense after his fumble. And his fumble.
He didn't see it before the fumble. Like I don't. The timing of him inserting in the game right there was. I'm literally like on my TV. Like, what are we doing? You're at your own 24.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, and the Gainwell goal line carries, as Casey keeps saying. I mean, it just makes 0 sense. 0 sense to me.
It's like when Doug Peterson would put Darren Sproles in the game on 4th and inches.
We're nitpicking here because we are 13-2. But really, the whole point of the first half of the show is the injuries. Lane Johnson, Avonte Maddox, and whether Jalen Hurts should be back this week against New Orleans. And, I'll just keep summarizing it with this, Dylan. I am not concerned in the sense where that this coaching staff won't not have whoever is stepping up ready to play. Right. I am confident Jack Driscoll will be ready to play. And I'm going to be confident that they're going to have a backup plan. Whether it's moving guys, or if Jack Driscoll struggles for the first half, moving them around, whether it's, them using more 12 personnel and having Jack Stoll over there to help him out, they will have a plan in place ready to roll this week. And I'm 110% confident in that. And it's distinct. So
can I point something out to you?
Yeah.
Everything you just listed was on the offensive side of the ball. All your confidence for a game plan was on the offensive side of the ball.
I'm telling you, just
something had to do with Jonathan
Scott is going to look like a Pro Bowl cornerback with Big Red slinging the ball for the Saints this week.
Yeah, but that's why. Man. That's why, to me, everything, like the way you just laid it out is so perfect because that's the only little bit of concern I'll have is what does he decide to do and Josiah Scott.
All right, give me a second here. Who are you afraid of? Chris Olave. Well, Chris Olave's actually had a pretty decent rookie season. 63 catches, 943 touchdowns. Their next leading receiver, Alvin Kamara, out of the backfield. Mm-hmm. So Scott won't be on him.
Oh,
Johnson.
Hey. Flag on the play.
Their second leading reception in wide receivers is Jarvis Landry, who's played 9 games, has 25 catches.
Timeout.
Shaheed. I don't even know who that guy is. 19 catches. Come on. I'm not worried about this guy.
I'm not worried about this week. I'm talking about the playoffs.
Right, but you've got 2 weeks of game action to get Josiah Scott ready. Remember, Josiah Scott is 23 years old.
Yeah, but time
He's
out.
got minimal experience in the NFL.
I don't want
You've
to have
got
any
2 weeks
experience
to
in
get
the
him prepped
Here's
up
the
and ready
thing.
to roll.
Here's the thing. This is when, because again, it's the level of competition that you're going against. It's the same thing last year when we saw this defense look really good down the stretch. And when they didn't play a top 18 quarterback for the rest of the season, we thought, oh my God, they're putting it together. They get to Tampa Bay. Holy shit, they're horrific. And his system's horrific. Same thing here. I don't care what he looks like against Daniel Jones in week 18. What happens if they play Dallas again? What happens if they play, I don't even want to say
You know what happens,
Godwin
Dylan?
because
You have to
the
have
Bucs stink.
confidence. You're the one that's just said you've been confident about Jonathan Gannon all year. Have confidence in the guy.
He didn't. Yeah, I have been. But Saturday was a masterclass of throwback Jonathan Gannon sticking to his zone and
3
getting
for
ripped
30.
apart by it.
3rd and 30, man. 3rd and 30. It's always
Never
3rd and 30.
forget it. Never
Yeah.
forget it. That's oh
It's
my
going to go
God.
down in Eagles lore as one of the worst Eagles defensive plays of all time.
Especially on the holiday in Dallas. Like, oh, people are gonna remember this one.
All right, we got to take a quick pause in the action here. Today's show is brought to you by Gents Barber Lounge. Check out one of their 2 great locations, Fishtown and Old City, and book your appointment today. They own the craft, and it shows. Rated the #1 barbershop on Yelp in the Philadelphia market. Able to handle any style cut, adult or kid. Check out some of their great work right here. All right, we're back here trending in the AM on DSM Media. Again, if you're just tuning in, make sure you hit the like button, the subscribe button, the comment button on the YouTube page. If you're watching on any other social media platform, make sure you're following, sharing it out, liking it. Good morning. Good morning. We just went over this. We're split. I say Hurts plays Sunday. Dylan says he probably shouldn't. I want to bring up a really, really just fun little topic for a couple minutes here.
All right.
All right. We're going to get to Sixers and Joel Embiid's MVP candidacy and this great run the Sixers are on right now in a second. But last night might have been the last time I ever get to see Nick Foles play a live football game.
Mm-hmm.
And my man Shane Half from the Painted Lions put out a thing last night, and I was thinking about it, and I commented on it this morning. Nick Foles was never a good quarterback.
Mm.
And I think we've tricked ourselves into thinking that Nick Foles was a really good quarterback. But, man, what Jeff Saturday's thinking of pulling Nick Foles off the practice squad, or I don't even know where Nick Foles was because I don't think he threw a pass all year, and thought it was a good idea to throw him out there on Monday Night Football against the Chargers,
Mm-hmm.
and thought it was going to be a good idea. First off, Jeff Saturday is just a train wreck of a head coach.
It's
The Colts will not be
ugly down there.
removing the interim tag from him at the end of the season.
No.
Nick Foles, man, 27-2 with Chip Kelly. That
Mhm.
didn't last. Goes all over the league, fails, comes back, gets 2.5 really good games to win us our first Super Bowl, and then stinks the rest of his career again. Is Nick Foles the most overrated icon of all time? Because he's an icon in Philly. He'll never pay for a drink ever again in Philly.
He did have one more run in him the following year in 2018. Carson gets hurt again.
Jeffries dropped the wide open pass.
He had about a 4-game stretch there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately that I'm agreeing with you, but unfortunately for what we're talking about, I agree with you in a negative light, Phil. This is a painful conversation.
It breaks my heart to say that.
Yeah. I've always said it, man. And why do you think? Yeah. And obviously, clearly, I was wrong about Carson Wentz. You were wrong about Carson Wentz. A lot of people were wrong about Carson Wentz. But why do you think that conversation?
He was a goat.
Yeah. Why do you think the conversation was so divisive in the city when people wanted after the Super Bowl and the year after Foles to start? He was what he was, and he caught the most magical carpet ride that any professional athlete could ever imagine. And he played so out of his mind. Even if a healthy MVP like Carson Wentz plays in that Super Bowl, I don't even know if we win. That's how ridiculous Nick Foles was in the Super Bowl and hell in the NFC Championship game. The bottom line is, how much evidence do you just need to pile up to just say the dude is an average to below average quarterback. And mind you, that was 5 years ago, half a decade, and people are still so excited to watch Nick Foles tonight. So excited. Me and Scotty,
I bet
for
you
fun.
someone will have a poll out on social media on their radio station account today. Who would you prefer starting this week against the Saints? Nick Foles or Gardner Minshew?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Someone's going to put that out there.
And I'm sure there'd be fans here that would prefer Nick Foles to be back. And hell, me and Scotty had fun with it. We put
People
Foles
talked
over
about it earlier
228
this year that
passing.
people should bring him back.
What'd you say?
People talked about it this year. Trade Gardner Minshew and bring Nick Foles back as your backup.
I really don't know what else to say about it. It really does, I guess,
right,
get forgetful for people. Like, that really was a half decade ago.
Yeah.
And people are still trying to do it. And then
I get it. It's our only Super Bowl in the history of our franchise.
That's why it's so important.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
why he's so
and
important.
there are so many iconic moments on the way to the Super Bowl. That Minnesota game, the Philly special. There's so many iconic moments.
See, I'm glad you bring that up, because that's the whole point, right? That could have been anybody. That's why he's not special for being Nick Foles. He's special for what happened. If that was Gardner Minshew would be remembered in this light, not Nick Foles, because of the quarterback Nick Foles was. It's only remembered because it's the first Super Bowl in the history of the organization. The Philly call, they got the statue, everything that.
Let's be honest. I always say this. Well, I don't say it a lot because I get bashed for it all the time. If the referee wants to throw a flag because Joe's saying he sucked against Atlanta and he wasn't really good that game, Jalen Mills interfered with Julio Jones on the goal line with like a minute left in the game, and that could have set up 1st and goal for Matt Ryan, which would have won them that game probably. I mean, there's so many what ifs in that scenario.
I'll say this. You can go back in the moment, and that's why anybody that at that moment was saying that Foles should be the starter, anybody that still wants to bring Nick Foles back as a backup, you can't have a serious conversation with them. You know why? Yeah, they might be diehard Eagles fans, but whatever. Like, back then in 2018, 2019, just put it this way. My sister, let's just say, who doesn't watch the Eagles week in and week out, she tunes in for the playoffs, right? She was coming to me that year. Yeah. Carson sucks. Nick Foles should be starting. That's the type of fan that was polling for Nick Foles to start. So if you're an Eagles fan that goes that, you're trying to have a conversation with me and you're like, Nick Foles should be, I can't take you seriously. And that kind of sums up what he was as a quarterback.
You're spot on with that. 100%. I just thought it was fun. I got to think about it, because the phrase where I said there to introduce that, is he the most overrated icon in Philadelphia sports? I just kind of thought of that on the spot. That wasn't where I was going to go. But now I'm thinking in my head, who else might fit into that overrated icon status? I'm going to work on that. That might be a poll.
I just don't think there's anybody that can reach that level because of what was achieved.
Absolutely.
There's no.
Think about the 08 World Series team, maybe the 93 World Series team. Maybe there's somebody on there. I don't know. I gotta really dig deep into that. But anyway, we got to get into the other team now. We got to get to the Philadelphia 76ers here. And we got an 8-game winning streak obviously going on right now. We've got the Washington Wizards in Washington tonight. Surprisingly, they're only a 4.5-point favorite in this game, which the Wizards have lost, like, I don't know, something like 8 of their last 9 or 10 of their last 11 games.
They just blew somebody out the other night. I think the Kings they blew out.
They did, but for the most part, they're struggling pretty bad for the most part right now. But it came across my phone yesterday about how Joel Embiid is currently, depending on which sports book you look at, either the 5th or the 6th ranked player in the MVP odds. And let's be honest, we're pushing the halfway point of the season now. We're about 38, 40 games into the season now. Halfway through the season, he leads the league in scoring over, he's averaging 33-plus points a game. He's averaging somewhere about right around 10, 11 rebounds a game.
9
5
points.
assists a game. I mean, the guy's playing probably his best basketball ever, which is saying something, considering he should have been the MVP the last 2 years. But I'm trying to find something specifically. Over the last 8 games, he's averaging 40, 11, and 5. I mean, that's not 1 or 2 games.
Mhm.
We're talking about an 8-game stretch where he's averaging over 40 points.
8-game win streak.
8-game win streak.
Not empty stats.
What does Joel Embiid have to do in the NBA to get any kind of respect? Honestly, I'm actually going to go lay some money because I saw 10-1, 12-1 on Joel Embiid. I want to lay money at those numbers because he's having such a great season. But then the other side of my ear is saying no one's ever going to vote for this guy to be MVP, and it's just a waste of money.
He's already done everything he can do, and Casey's right. He's not getting it. I think we came to that realization last year when he lost the award and they gave it to the Joker back-to-back seasons. It's funny when you said he's leading the league in points per game, and that's what I was gonna say. It's ironic, right? It's pretty crazy. Oh, you mean he's averaging more than when he led the league last season? He's averaging over 33 a game this year, dude. 33, 10, career high in assists.
That's like Michael Jordan-esque numbers.
And a block and over a block and a steal per game. They're on an 8-game win streak. I don't know what he has. There's no, I don't know what to do. It's all calculators. It's all analytical nerds. Winning means nothing, right? Because you can go back to the year they were the 1 seed. You go back to last year, but then they give it to the 6th or 7th seed, Nikola Jokic, right? So it doesn't matter there. And listen, I'm not trying to when I'm trying to build Joel Embiid up, I'm not trying to discredit other guys, right? Like that was a big conversation last year. Like I'm trying to build Embiid up. I'm not saying the Joker sucks. I'm saying he's the second best center in the league, right? So, but like I look at a guy like so the Sixers are now 20-12, right? Which isn't spectacular, but they're like a game and a half behind the Milwaukee Bucks or the Boston Celtics now, who ran away with first and second place to start the year. And I look at a guy like Luka Doncic out west, who, yeah, he's a top 3 player in the league, right? Phenom. Joel Embiid's got better numbers than Luka, and Luka's team is 18-16.
Yeah.
But Luka's considered an MVP favorite, and Joel wasn't top 10 for a while.
Some sports books have him as the leading candidate at this point.
I don't know what to say about that, right? Here's the ones I would give you. And it's because to me, winning has to matter. Tatum would matter.
Mm-hmm.
Giannis would matter, even though he probably has some voter fatigue at this point. That's it in the East ahead of Joel. I ain't putting anybody else in the East over Joel.
You just mentioned, really sorry, I'll cut you off for a second. You mentioned that word voter fatigue with Giannis, and that happened a lot with Jordan and with Kobe and with a lot of guys back in the day, LeBron even. Is there a scenario where why isn't there voter fatigue on Jokic? You know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know, man. And here's the funny part. I just pulled up the standings to see out west, like who would be leading, right? And ironically enough, the Joker does have the number 1 seed at the moment. But guess what the number 1 seed in the West is at this moment, Phil? Guess what the record is?
What?
21-11.
Okay.
That's the 1 seed. The Sixers at the 5 seed are 20-12. So instead of looking at the record and what they've been doing, people, 1 seed versus 5 seed. No. There's a 1-game difference, but because the conference is different, it's a little more competitive, right? So I don't know what he's got to do. There is nothing he can do.
I kind of feel like, the Eastern Conference is way more competitive than the Western Conference. Yeah. There's literally no doubt. You think about it. You look at it. I just pulled the standings up as you were saying that. There is literally 3 games that separate the top 5 seeds.
Yeah.
In the Eastern Conference. 5 games back would put you in the 10 spot in the Western Conference. You know, I don't know. I have been the guy that has criticized Joel. I brought up, the conversation of trading Joel, and is there time to have that conversation? I brought that up a month ago or so. And yes, I have complained way more than I should about this Sixers team. But when you really think about it, it's kind of frustrating to think that, maybe I could criticize or complain about some simple, like some X's and O's and some strategy.
Same thing we do with the Eagles.
Exactly. But I do know that they're one of the best teams in the East still. I still recognize that this team will make the playoffs. Now, whether they'll be able to beat, depending on their matchup in the first round, who knows, or in the second round. But they're still over an 82-game season, one of the best teams in the NBA, and I can recognize that. And that's the problem. Recognizing the MVP is for the regular season, and the Sixers are constantly winning how many games?
Yep.
And let's be honest, they've won 8 in a row. Have you looked at their schedule over the next 2 to 3 weeks? It's really easy.
I peeked
Starting
at
tonight,
it, but
there's
yeah,
a
I think
chance
you're
that
right.
they go on a 15-2 stretch total, a 16-2 stretch total. I mean, it's a really easy schedule coming up here. Oh yeah, they'll lose some games they shouldn't, but this is the part of the schedule where they're going to start putting some space,
Yeah.
in this division, in this conference. But yet, no respect given to the guy that is literally put this team on his back. We talk about Jalen Hurts and how he's put the Eagles on his back, and he's the MVP of the league. Well, Joel Embiid, I know James Harden's having a great season, but losing James Harden, we tread at water. You lose Joel Embiid for a month, you don't tread water.
Mhm. So I just had to pull it up. So the Joker stats out west, number 1 seed. He's averaging 25, 11, 9 assists, 1.5 steals, 0.7 blocks. Embiid's averaging 33. Embiid's averaging 10 boards, so 1 more board to Jokic. And then 5 assists to 9 assists is the difference. And Embiid also averages a block and a half. Joker averages under 1. So you're telling me that 8 less points, but 4 more assists, that's the runaway?
Yeah,
That's the runaway?
It's the 4 assists, man. Fans,
Like,
this was a conversation years ago and multiple times over the last few years that the triple-double is the most overrated stat in the NBA. But reporters, fans, everybody just clamors for triple-doubles, and they think it's the coolest thing. And he's averaging nearly a triple-double, so that's why he gets the same thing with Luka. Luka's a triple-double machine.
Not just Luka. Here's another one that can post a triple-double, and he almost did it on Christmas night. But he's right. And don't get, again, I'm not trying to knock him down. He's a top, I don't know where I would rank him. I'd have to go through it. But he's definitely top 8 probably right now, top 7. Ja Morant, right? Memphis, top 3 seed, Ja Morant. Ja Morant's averaging 26, 6, and 8. 26, 6, and 8. Embiid's averaging 33, 10, and 5. But Ja Morant is looked at as this young, phenomenal, threat to the war. Obviously, the Warriors are injured and banged up, but, that team out west that's going to come out, MVP, and Joel's, he's top 10. It makes no sense.
It really doesn't. So at this point, do we just need to say, screw it? Who cares about the MVP
and I think I realized we should have realized that last year.
Let's focus on discussing about the team. Is that what, as Sixers guys, as content creators, we just have to say screw the MVP conversation?
Yeah.
Look, this doesn't even bring up the fact that Bleacher Report, which has turned into a semi-fairly reputable site. I mean, it used to be anybody could write for Bleacher Report. Now you kind of have to have some ability right there. That they've got him projected to be one of the last reserves on the team, on the All-Star team. There's some sites out there reporting that he might not even make the All-Star game. But should we even care about that shit? Like, really? Like, should we even care that he gets disrespected? Or just hope he continues to get disrespected? Because I really feel like
I hope he does.
Disrespected, he's gotten better every single year.
I really hope he does.
On his shoulder. Because Joel Embiid is a guy that if he gets pissed off enough, as long as he's healthy, as long as he doesn't have a broken face, could hypothetically carry us to a title.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you look at how well the team is playing over the last 8, and that's the part that's got me excited. And it's not just him; it's James, it's Tobias from 3, it's the role guys. You're getting Maxey back this Friday against New Orleans.
Is that confirmed?
Yeah, he's
okay.
Back
I didn't
Friday.
see that confirmed. So here's the question then, because I did want to bring up and get your thoughts on it. And Scotty, in the comments, you tell me too what you think. Should Maxey? I know Doc said that he's going to be on a limited minutes at first, and he's going to come off the bench because of that. But there is a scenario where he stays on the bench for a significant amount of time. Are you okay with that? And starting D'Anthony Melton in his place? Because Melton's come on strong. Melton's proven to be a good shooter. His defense is really important, in that starting group. Are you keeping Maxey on the bench when he comes back?
No, I'm not. Listen, we know the idea of it, what it could look like. This freakish 6-man run the second unit, bucket guy, right? And give them unlimited offense from that point of view. And Doc can flux around with the rotations as well and get him in with the starters minutes. No, at times he's your second best player. He's your third best player with the ceiling to be your second best player on the floor. those guys have to start. And to me, I mentioned this to Scotty last night, off air. I would flirt around with the idea of running all three guards, and running a James Harden,
And what,
Anthony Melton.
putting Tucker on the bench.
Yeah, but the reverse side of that is now if you don't have Maxey or Melton coming off the bench and you have PJ Tucker coming off the bench, what happens offensively, then Doc has to get creative with the minutes and the rotation and all that. But I'm not keeping Tyrese Maxey on the bench. No shot.
Right.
The idea of it sounds fun, but no.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to, as Drew is saying, Melton is your sixth man.
He probably will be.
I think this starting stretch that he's had over the last 6 weeks, where he's first was for Harden and then for Maxey, has helped build his confidence up. Where he what everybody thinks and wants Maxey to be off the bench
is something D'Anthony Melton could be.
He can be, and the confidence he's been able to gain over the last 4 to 6 weeks of playing, I think it will help him be that guy. I mean,
I agree.
I say this, semi-loosely. Last year, I did watch a bunch of D'Anthony Melton. I was excited when we traded for him because I do like Ja Morant. And Scotty listing the MVP guys. I've actually seen books where Ja was ahead of Morant. It wasn't DraftKings, but it was another book I saw Ja listed ahead of Morant, or Ja ahead of Embiid. And I remember watching Memphis games last year when Ja Morant didn't play and looking at this Melton kid, be like, this kid's got something. But the 10 games he started in place of Ja Morant last year, you saw a jump in his confidence. And then he became the guy that I got excited we got. Now he just started for 6 more weeks, and his confidence level has jumped up even more. He's only 24 years old.
Yeah.
This kid hasn't even reached his peak yet. So I think he can be that piece off the bench we want now that his confidence is another step further along.
I agree, and for so many reasons, he can do so many different things. Scotty, no, stay out of the dark side, bro. Stay away from the dark side.
Let me hold on. You can get back to Melton in a second. To address Scotty's point, I'm 110%. Unless the Sixers win the NBA title this year, which maybe they do, I don't know. It could happen. Unless they win the title, he is not going back to Houston next year. He wants a title before he would love to go back to Houston. But
I think I agree. And I also can see this just being such his camp, his agent leveraging.
Absolutely.
And why would it be Houston, right? Like, he already forced his way out of there in ridiculous fashion, right? Like, it was worse than when he forced his way out of Brooklyn at the end of last season. So, like, why would he go back there? Because they know the roots, they know the city that he loves, so they're using that as leverage. That would be my guess. Whatever. Getting back to Melton, him coming off the bench with his confidence, Phil, I love it because here's what he can do, right? He can be another ball handler coming off the bench for you. He can play extremely. We've seen him with his stretch with Shake Milton. We know he can play alongside Shake. He's running a 2-man game with James Harden. He's running a pick and roll with James Harden, which has been a lot of fun to watch. We know he can play with him. We know he'll play with Maxey. He plays both sides. I don't see why you would choose to bring Maxey off the bench over him. D'Anthony Melton can kind of bring you two things, meaning the defense and the offense off the bench. So if someone's getting crushed, like let's say, I don't know, PJ's getting exploited down low to start a game, you slide Tobias to the 4, and then you bring him in for that 3-guard lineup. There's going to be a lot of things that Doc can do. The question now becomes, can Doc Rivers accomplish that?
I mean, you think about it. Once we're fully healthy, which now you're saying Friday we are, the minutes, I mean, we've learned a lot because we missed Harden for 4 weeks and Maxey for like 5 or 6 weeks. We've learned a lot about Shake Milton, D'Anthony Melton, about certain guys. We've learned more about how Daniel House, like I said, is not really that great of a basketball player. The rotation's really going to change. There's a scenario where Matisse is back to DMP coaches' decisions a bunch of nights. Shake Milton's minutes are going to go massively down, obviously. He's proven that he's more than capable of stepping in, but his minutes are going to go. I mean, it's back to Melton. It's back to George Niang, your backup center. They're your main 3 guys off the bench. And then it's House, it's Shake, Matisse. I mean, any combination of those guys. But the minutes are really going to change once Maxey comes back. And it brings up, I brought it up yesterday. I saw more people talking about it. Do you try to trade Shake Milton? Do you try to trade now Matisse now? Do you try to, now that you've got everybody back, now start to make some moves, tweak the back end of the bench, because you still need. I mean, you can't go into the playoffs with Daniel House being a part of the rotation. You can't go into the playoffs with wasting a spot with Matisse Thybulle, who plays 4 minutes one game, 17 the next, DMPs the next, 20 the next.
Right.
You can't keep doing that with him. So, and this right here, you got to get somebody off the bench that can grab a rebound.
No, I'll scream it from the rooftops. Effort. I don't think it's a size. First of all, they're one of the bigger. You're starting a center and 2 power forwards in your starting lineup. You have a point guard that can get a triple-double, so he rebounds. It's all about effort. I don't think it's a lack of size, a lack of athleticism. I think truly when you watch Joel Embiid come out,
Daniel House can't grab a rebound. Daniel House stinks.
Yeah, but I'm not worried about like
George Young's got 2 bricks for feet. You know what I mean? He doesn't actually have to jump to shoot 3-point shots. So how's he going to out-jump somebody on a rebound? He's the most unathletic 3-point shooter in the league. He is. I no offense. I have not seen you jump, Dylan, but you may be able to jump a little higher than George Yang.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to find out.
It's close. It's a close call right there.
Find out.
But it is effort. I do get that. There is effort. But that comes down to coaching. Effort.
Oh, yeah.
Effort is coaching. Part of effort is coaches, holding players accountable. You see Miles Sanders have a huge fumble on Saturday, and he doesn't see the field the last 3 drives. That's holding a player accountable.
Yeah.
What do the Sixers do when somebody screws up?
No, give them more.
Go back out there. Let me bench somebody else so you can play more.
Yeah, but to your point about do you trade a Matisse, do you trade a Shake? It'll be interesting. First of all, the trade deadline's not so far away anymore as 2023 is coming on soon.
And now that part in December where you could trade guys that sign deals in the offseason is past, so you can sign and trade anybody you want. But I don't know. I still don't feel like there's a move that really moves the needle, but maybe there's a small move that could be made that brings in some heart and some hustle.
There's one guy still sitting on the bench out in Phoenix, and I don't know why no one else has made that move for him. I don't know if you even want to come here.
The homie?
No. Jay Crowder. Still.
We've been talking about trading for Jay Crowder for 27 years now.
Still just sitting around, not playing.
How about I know it's fresh in everybody's mind. Robert Covington. Sitting on the bench in LA.
I don't see why you wouldn't take a flyer on it. I wasn't even a Rocco fan when he was here. But if he's your 8th or 9th man, athleticism, maybe he can hit a 3 or 2 off the bench.
He can give you more defensively and effort-wise than Daniel House can.
Right.
And occasionally knock down a 3. I mean, Daniel House occasionally knocks down some 3s. Daniel House, takes fadeaway, step back 3-pointers like he's James Harden.
I do hate that.
Occasionally they go down.
I really hate it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason for him to be making step back fadeaway.
I do really hate when he does that shit. But
I mean, it really makes no sense. But Robert Covington can do that. You know what I mean? So that we need some athleticism. There's no doubt about it. We need some energy and we need some heart and hustle. We need somebody of Robert Covington's size with the heart and hustle of TJ McConnell. Find me a combo of the 2 of those.
I don't think you find that because TJ needs all the heart and hustle he can get.
Yeah, I don't know.
That would be an interesting one, man, Scotty.
Yeah, that's one I haven't heard of before, at least. Is he still in Dallas?
Yeah, well, that begs the question, right? Is that like Dallas at 18 and 16? Are they looking to move anybody?
Scotty, I've been asking for the Sixers to trade or sign this guy since the first day he came into the league.
Well,
this guy does it all. He doesn't mind taking 0 shots in a game, but then if you need him to take 10 shots in a game, he can. He gets rebounds, he assists, he plays defense. I love Josh Hart's game.
It's funny, speaking of his teammate, I mean, imagine if they just didn't draft somebody and trade them away 2 seconds later that fits this description perfectly a few short years ago.
Yeah.
Mikal Bridges.
That's a heartbreaker right there.
Mikal Bridges.
Yeah. Who? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, do the Sixers get 9 in a row tonight against the Washington Wizards?
Yes, and you can check out DSM pregame live with myself and Scotty tonight, specifically on the YouTube channel. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications for that. We'll be live around 6 p.m. tonight. But yeah, I do believe so, man. I think they're playing incredibly well at the moment. There's something about this team, not just what you're seeing, as far as shooting the ball and defensively, but I watched against the Clippers and now I watched against the Knicks. big time shots, James Harden getting to the rack, and this team's pounding each other's chests, talking to the crowd, getting fired up late in games. They seem to be more of a cohesive group as they're getting healthier. I think that continues tonight. The Wizards are a lesser talented team. As long as you don't let Kuzma and Beal hit you for 60, I think you're good.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. I mean, I look at the schedule, and I did just bring up the schedule. We got Washington tonight. Then we're in New Orleans, which will be a tough game on Friday. And then we go New Orleans, 30th, the 31st. We got OKC. So we got a tough stretch there. 3 games in 4 days, because then we go Monday the 2nd, home against New Orleans again. But realistically speaking, you got Washington, New Orleans, OKC, New Orleans, Indy, Chicago, Detroit, OKC, Utah, Lakers, Spurs, or Lakers, Clippers, Portland. I mean, there's a lot of really winnable games in January here. It's the 30th, 31st, 2nd. You got 3 games.
Look at that. One of those runs we were talking about, right?
Yeah, stacking the wins.
Yeah.
They're going to lose one of those games or 2 of those games.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like going 8, 9, 10 wins in a row, losing 1 game, then winning 4 more in a row, and then losing 1. That's what we need to see. No 2-game losing streaks or anything like that. Just stack the wins with an occasional loss. They're set up for that. At the end of January, they could legitimately be in the top 3 in the Eastern Conference again.
I agree. Honestly, I feel like they should be at that point. If that's unless somehow Cleveland or Brooklyn, because Brooklyn's on like a 9-game win
honestly
at the moment. So
the top of the Eastern Conference, 1 through 6 even, is red hot. It's everybody else. As the Sixers are winning games, so is everybody else around them in the standings, and that is why we're not number 1 in the East right now, because everybody's
to be honest with you.
Right now. Yeah, exactly. All right, we're gonna wrap up Trey in the AM right here. There will be no show tomorrow. I'm traveling to Florida. I will be live from sunny Orlando, Florida on Thursday. No show tomorrow. I leave for the airport at 7:30 a.m. But we'll be back Thursday, like I said. Make sure, like Dylan said, you turn the notifications on and you subscribe to the DSM Media YouTube page. It's the only place to see the pregame shows, the Sixers, the Eagles, Phillies, when the Phillies come back. Only place to see the pregame shows is on the YouTube page. So make sure you subscribe to the DSM Media YouTube page. 7 away from 700. Let's get there. I've been begging. I've been pleading. Let's get there. I'd greatly appreciate it. Everybody have a great day. It's going to be a little warmer. It might actually pass freezing today. It might be 33 or 34. It's going to feel like a summer day out there. For Dylan Davis next to me here, I am Phil Stiefel. Y'all have a great day. See you on Thursday.
And Philadelphia has it.